आपके चरण शरण में है और आपकी वजह से हम नाम ले पाते हैं। सो आपका बहुत सारा शुक्राना है गुरु साहब। आज आपने हमारे बीच में अनिमा आंटी को भेजा है। With folded hands and bowed head, I request Aunty to kindly unmute yourself and share your blessings with Guru Sahab. Of Guru Sahab with us.
जय गुरु जी। आप सुन पा रहे हैं मुझे?
हाँ जी।
जय गुरु जी। गुरु जी को मेरा प्रणाम। गुरु जी की संगत को मेरा प्रणाम। शुक्राना शुक्राना मेरे मालिक, आपकी उस्तत करने का आज मौका देने का बहुत बहुत शुक्राना। मेरी वोकैबुलरी और मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग बहुत ही छोटी है और गुरुजी की उस्तत कर पाना, उसको जस्टिफाई कर पाना शायद पॉसिबल नहीं है। दिस इज जस्ट माय हम्बल अटेम्प्ट। गुरुजी प्लीज टेक कंट्रोल। जो आप बुलवाना चाहते हैं मैं वही बोलूं, जो आप शेयर करवाना चाहते हैं मैं वही शेयर करूं। जय गुरुजी। मेरी जर्नी गुरुजी के साथ शुरू हुई विद अ पर्सनल disaster. April 2019, my daughter got diagnosed with a tumor. June 2019, my bhabhi, my sister-in-law, Ruchi Arora Aunty, she's from Folsom, California. उन्होंने मुझे गुरुजी से इंट्रोड्यूस किया। मुझे गुरुजी का लौकिक स्वरूप, मंत्र जाप और यूट्यूब के कुछ लिंक्स भेजे सत्संग के। मुझे जब गुरुजी का स्वरूप मिला, मैं गुरुजी से डायरेक्टली कनेक्ट नहीं हो पाई। इवन दो आई वाज चैंटिंग द मंत्र जाप, बट इट वाज जस्ट अ लिप सर्विस, कुछ कनेक्शन नहीं था। I listened to all the satsangs that she had sent, and those were mainly focused on how Guruji miraculously cured cancers and vanished the tumors. Even though I wanted that miracle to happen, but unfortunately I was not getting connected to him. And my mantra jap was just a lip service, nothing more than that. So time passed and I was continuing with the mantra jap, and my daughter's tumor grew to a size where she needed a surgery, and that surgery was very invasive, life altering. And the surgeons, they gave us 3 possible outcomes: a best outcome, a second best outcome, and the third one was, it's going to be really bad, so brace yourself, be ready for the worst. So right before the surgery that happened in December of 2019, I took Guruji's Swaroop with me, and right before the surgery, I asked Guruji to accompany my daughter in the surgery room, and I told him, please do whatever you think is best for her. Even though I said that, but I was kind of cheating. I was trying to be over smart. Even though I said that, I thought if I say that, I will get the best outcome. I was expecting the best outcome and just, as a lip service saying, do whatever you think is best for my daughter. The surgery lasted for 8 long hours. And after the surgery, when we met the surgeons, they said the outcome is the second best. They couldn't deliver the best outcome. I was devastated, really, really disheartened. But the recovery and her condition was such that, I just had to put my resentment on the back burner and move on with life. Year 2020 was a nightmare, to say the least. She was hospitalized 4 times, another procedure in March. of 2020. And the lip service continued. I did not feel any connection with Guruji, but still I was marking my attendance in front of him, reciting the mantra jap. That continued. Come September 2020, things got so bad that she was unable to eat anything. Like anything she ate, she would be in pain, doubled up. And by December 2020, I had stopped sleeping all night long. I would be on the internet searching for some answers to help her. And every night before searching the internet, I would bow my head in front of Lord Shiva, do Sashtang Pranam, rub my nose in front of him and tell him to guide us, just help us find some way, some path that leads to her recovery. And then I would tell Lord Shiva, I am going to go search the internet and you please help me. This continued. And then one night, it was probably the darkest night of my life. I bowed in front of Lord Shiva. I rubbed my nose. And instead of saying, I am going to search the internet, I said, I think it was Guruji asking me to say that or guiding me to say that. Otherwise, I don't have that kind of wisdom. So instead of saying, I am going to search the internet, I said, tonight you will search the internet and you will give me the answer and you will tell me what is happening to my daughter and how can we get her on the path of recovery. And that night completely changed my life. And I don't want to forget that night till the day I live, because that night shows my worth and my position. It shows my position in front of Guruji at his feet, rubbing my nose, and my worth, which is zero without him. I don't want to forget that night ever. And that night, Guruji gave me 2 articles that mentioned one of the medications that my daughter was taking, and it was causing all those side effects that she was facing. And since my ego was all gone and I had my hands up in the air, surrendering to him, I think that night was the night when Guruji walked 1,000,000 miles towards me and accepted me as his Sangat. So Shukrana, Guruji, Shukrana. And from that day onwards, I started feeling his presence, his connection. The first thing that he showed me was, within a span of 2 weeks, I got connected with 5 other parents whose kids went through the same surgery. And all those 5 kids had even worse outcomes than my daughter. So that was the first thing Guruji showed me. Like, he took 90% of my daughter's karma, or rather our karma, on him and gave us just the 10%. Whatever we were facing was just the 10%. And another thing which he made me realize was, year 2020, everyone knows, was so bad with COVID cases escalating and at its peak in US especially. And we were practically living in hospitals all throughout 2020. We were hopping from one lab to a radiology lab, to a blood work lab, to ER, to hospitals, getting hospitalized and staying there for, weeks. And Guruji kept us safe, all the family members safe from COVID. And that is another blessing which he made me realize. after I got connected with him. Now that Guruji showed us what was causing the problem for my daughter, I took all that information and went to the doctor and asked him if we could stop that particular medication. And the doctor told me that it's very, very difficult to quit that medication. It's going to cause 6 to 12 weeks of excruciating pain. And most likely, my daughter won't be able to stop that medication. And she'll come back on it because she won't be able to take the pain. So I came back home, fell at Guruji's feet, and I told him, you have shown us the way, and you have shown that this is a solution. So now you have to give us the strength. And he gave strength to my daughter, such strength that there were days when I was not able to bear looking at her being in so much pain, but she was so determined to quit that medication. She didn't think even once to give up and restart it. At around week 4 of her quitting that medication, one night I was very, very disheartened and sad. It was getting really tough to see her in pain, days and days together. It had been 4 weeks at that point. So one night I was really sad and I was talking to Guruji and I told him, please talk to me today. Just say a word, even if that word is hello. Just talk to me. And that day, Guruji said, "Aa raha hu main." I did not understand what that meant. I thought most of this Sangat gets dream darshans of Guruji, and I have never had one. So I thought maybe, Guruji is trying to tell me that he's going to give me a dream darshan. So very excitedly, I went to sleep that night, hoping I'll see Guruji in my dream. That didn't happen. Days went on. I didn't get any dream darshan, or I couldn't figure out what "aa raha hu main" meant. Right around the time my daughter's blood work was not so good, and the doctors asked us to get an MRI done. Guruji delayed that MRI by a week. And within that 1 week, he just opened the floodgates of his blessings for us. Right before the MRI, the doctors were telling me that they are doing the MRI to diagnose at least one of the 3 diseases for my daughter. And they were convinced that she has at least one of those 3. So when the MRI was delayed during that 1 week period, I signed up for in-person satsang in Boston for the very first time. That was my very first in-person satsang. I RSVP'd all 4 members of the family. And I did not sign up for any seva. It was my first time. I didn't know any better. So a day before the satsang, Rekha Aunty, who runs our darbar in Boston, she called me, and we were just talking. And then Guruji made me say, "Aunty, koi seva de do." Aunty said, all seva has already been distributed. We are all set. Since it's your first time, just come, soak in the experience, and we're all good. So we talked for a little bit longer, and Guruji made me say it again, Aunty, koi seva de do. So what Aunty did was, out of her own seva that she had signed up for, a very small portion she assigned to me. Guruji that day showed me what is the meaning of seva and how big of a blessing is seva. And the seva that I got assigned that day was like really, really small. I'm not trying to brag that I did seva. I'm just trying to tell what seva meant for me, because Guruji knew what was going to happen to me and why he assigned that seva to me. So that night when I went to sleep, before I went to sleep, I saw a message which read, परिवार का एक सदस्य भी सत्संग में आ जाए तो मैं पूरे परिवार को bless कर देता हूँ. And I was thinking to myself, I've RSVP'd all 4 of us. Why am I seeing this message? Next morning, I woke up, I saw the exact same message, and I was still confused. And an hour later, my daughter woke up and she said she wasn't feeling that well. As the day progressed, her condition worsened. And then I realized what Guruji meant by saying, परिवार का एक सदस्य भी आ जाए तो मैं पूरे परिवार को bless कर देता हूँ. I knew at that point that all 4 of us cannot go. And since Guruji had assigned me a seva and had to finish that seva, I had to go. So I went. It was my very first in-person satsang. It was around end of March. It was a holy satsang. And during that satsang, Tanya Aunty, who was the host, when I was coming back, she gave me Jal Prasad for my daughter. She gave me a very big Swaroop, Guruji's Swaroop Prasad that I got home. And the moment I opened the door and entered into my house, the first thing that came out of my mouth was, Guruji said, "Aa raha hu main," or Guruji aa gaye. And that day, Guruji made the structure that we live in a home again. Then my daughter had the Jal Prasad. Guruji was in our house. And that night, my daughter had a dream darshan of Guruji. She saw that she was in a battlefield, all dressed up as a soldier. And that battlefield had a very long trench dug up. And that trench had enemy soldiers lined up along the trench on both sides with their guns and rifles in their hands and pointing it towards the trench, ready to shoot at whosoever goes through the trench. And my daughter was supposed to go through that trench. And then she saw a very tall, lean man who was also dressed up in a soldier's outfit. He held my daughter's hand, took her through the trench, and the bullets kept raining on them. And my daughter crossed the trench, went to the other side, and that's when she died. Next morning, she woke up and she told me the dream, and she said wherever the bullets had hit her, her body still hurts there. And we all knew it was Guruji who held her and pulled her through. So next day, my daughter was scheduled for her MRI. And I asked Guruji to accompany us. while she was going through her MRI, I was sitting in the same room facing the MRI machine. The MRI machine was buzzing very loudly. I was chanting mantra jap and in my mind, and tears started flowing down my cheeks. And I got a little conscious since I was in a public space. Sorry. So I closed my eyes. As soon as I closed my eyes, I saw my daughter lying on a surgery table with Guruji standing next to her. And I saw Guruji's side profile. He was very tall and lean, and he was wearing a yellow chola. And he was very gently massaging and caressing my daughter's abdomen. And he kept massaging my daughter's abdomen. And then he turned 45 degrees. He turned his neck 45 degrees and looked at me. And that's when I realized he's right there in front of me. It's not, some faraway vision that I'm seeing. And he smiled. He looked at me and smiled. When he smiled, the vision that was in a distance got really zoomed in, and I saw his face up close, and he was smiling. I got very scared, and I opened my eyes, and I was transported back to being in front of the MRI machine that was buzzing loudly. Then I closed my eyes again, the same scene. My daughter was on a surgery table. Guruji was still massaging her abdomen. He again turned, looked at me, smiled again. And this time, when the vision zoomed in on his face, while he was smiling, all of a sudden, his face turned into one of the surgeon's face who operated upon my daughter. So it was Guruji trying to tell me that he was the one who operated on my daughter that day. And whatever outcome I have gotten, I should accept it and just forget my resentment and accept it as, what was meant to be. That day, he liberated me from the resentment that I was carrying. My daughter's MRI finished, and the results were clean, squeaky clean. And doctor's words were, "We don't know what to do with your daughter." And it is all Guruji's blessing. He came all the way to fix my daughter. I don't have words to thank him ever. I will never be able to. It's all his blessings. That was around end of March. Then the medication, the pain that she was experiencing because she had stopped the medication, the pain lasted for 5 weeks. And after that, she was able to quit the medication, get a clean MRI, and we were ready to move on. Her condition has been up and down since. In September, her condition got rocky again. Guruji gave me 2 shabads in September. One shabad was Thirkar Beso Harjan Pyare Satguru Tumre Kaj Savare. And the second shabad was Santa ke Karaj Aap Khaloya Har Kam Karavan Aya Ram. And the way I interpreted those shabads, I thought Guruji is trying to tell me that he's going to fix my daughter. He's going to come and fix, and everything's going to be all good. That was my mistake. I completely ignored the first part of the shabad, which is thirkar beso, which means you just need to sit still, patiently, and wait. One day in September, Guruji showed me Nandiji, who is again a symbol of patience. And at that point, I was able to interpret what he was trying to tell me. But since I was so desperate and my daughter wasn't doing well, and it had been long 2-3 years of seeing her in pain, constant pain, I was getting really, really impatient. And every single day, day and night, I would just tell Guruji, 10% karam bhi nahi khat rahe, 10% karam bhi nahi khat rahe. Every single day. And Guruji just kept telling me, you need to have patience. Patience is the name of the game, patience. And the more he asked me to have patience, the more impatient I got. And then one day, Guruji stopped responding. This was around end of October. I troubled him so much that he stopped responding. And that was a very, very scary day for me. It was a Thursday, and Thursdays usually are Boston Satsang days. And I was getting ready to go to a Satsang. During that day, I just happened to click on randomly one of the Satsangs on YouTube. And that Satsang said, sometimes we make mistakes and our connection gets reset and we have to start from zero again. That was very, very scary, realizing that, yes, my connection has been reduced to zero and I'm starting from scratch. That day I cried on my way to the satsang. And I told Guruji, I have nothing going in my life except you. So please, if you break your connection, I'll have nothing left. That day, in the satsang, the shabad that played was Tera Hira Anmol Janam Khalsa. And that particular shabad, the vyakhya for that shabad, lists every single vikar that we all have, that we need to remove in order to renew our connection with Guruji. I came home, I fell at his feet, and I thanked him for acknowledging my misery and connecting me back with him. October, Guruji gave me yet another shabad, which was Prab Dori Haath Tumhare. And October 30th, I had a family satsang at my house, just the four of us with Guruji. And after the satsang was over, the tilak, when it dried up, it formed a crescent moon with Trishul coming out of it. And Guruji showed his presence. I was on cloud 9. That night, I felt so happy. I slept very peacefully that night. And October 31st, my daughter was back in the hospital, in the ER, and then hospitalized for a week. I went to the hospital. I took Jal Prasad with me. She was not allowed to have anything by mouth, not even water. And then again, she was taken for an MRI. I was sitting in front of the MRI machine with my eyes closed, and I was focusing on the rock star Swaroop of Guruji and chanting mantra jap. Then suddenly I saw myself in a queue outside Bade Mandir. I've never been to Bade Mandir. I've only seen videos. I saw myself in Bade Mandir in a queue. Then I went into the main darbar. The main darbar was very dimly lit, and we were just supposed to walk in a queue and go from the entrance to the exit. There was no provision to sit. When I came out, there was white marble all over. It was very bright. Sun was shining very, very brightly and reflecting off of that white marble. And it felt really warm and cozy. I got a samosa prasad. I took one bite out of it. And when I took a bite, a big piece of green chili, the bottom part of green chili, the pointed part, that fell into the bowl that I was holding. And as soon as I looked at the green chili, the first thing I said was, "Oh, Guruji cures and heals everyone with chilies. I must eat it." So I picked up that piece of green chili and I ate it. Then I was given something in a bowl. I don't know. I don't recall what it was. And then I again went in another queue where I was given to go langar prasad. Then I went out into the parking lot. I saw myself out in the parking lot. The parking lot had a lot of dirt and mud. And I insisted that I must eat the langar prasad right there. So I went to the sidewalk. Sorry. I went to the sidewalk, and in that instance, I turned into a beggar. I had a very, very strong feeling that I was a beggar. I was squatting on that pavement, all covered in dirt and mud, and I felt very dirty, very filthy. And I had a very, very strong feeling that I was a beggar. I had a very low height wall behind me, and there were monkeys jumping on that wall. And then I saw a close up of one of the monkeys with a very shiny, pointy canine. And I was eating langar prasad all covered in dirt, and I was eating it in the most uncivilized way. And I felt really dirty. And now that I process all that information, I feel how symbolically on point was that. I was a beggar. I am a beggar in front of Guruji, and that dirt that I was covered in, it symbolizes in spiritual world the dirt that we all carry, or rather I carry inside of me, that I need to clean and cleanse. After I was done eating the langar prasad, I got clean again, and I went again in the Bade Mandir main darbar, and just to take permission to leave from Guruji. And Guruji, I could not see him walk all the way up to me. I could not see his whole body. All I saw was his face and his hands. And he came to me. I had my hands folded. One of his hands, with one hand, he wrapped my folded hands. With the other hand, he put his hand on my head. And that's where the whole vision stopped. And for the rest of the MRI, where I was sitting, this whole scenario just kept repeating in loop. After the MRI was over, we came back into the room. My daughter was allowed to start water, and I told her, "You need to drink jal prasad instead of the water that hospital was giving." So she started with that. And I was checking, I just randomly clicked on one of the satsangs on YouTube. And I'm not making this up. At that moment, my daughter had just started clear liquids. And I'm not making this up. The satsang that I clicked on randomly, the very first line of that satsang was, I was on a clear liquid diet for a very long time. And Guruji told me Bani is very powerful. Bani can cure anything. I had goosebumps. I cried. I was pacing up and down one of the hallways in the hospital, and I had tears rolling down my cheeks. I just could not believe what I heard. So giving and so loving is our Guru. That day, I checked the hospital app and it was showing estimated discharge date for my daughter as 3rd of November, which is a day before Diwali. And I told Guruji, if it's your wish, we'll celebrate Diwali at home, or else we'll be here in the hospital. And my daughter was discharged on the 3rd of November instead of the 4th that she was initially assigned. Before she was discharged, I had a visit by one of the doctors who asked about her history, and it was very painful to go over the history. And then after listening to the history, he told me how bleak my daughter's future is and how multiple organ failures she's going to have in the next 5 to 10 years. It was too much to take. And that night I pulled up Guruji's Swaroop on my phone and I was angry. And I asked him, why did you allow the doctor to come visit me and just rob me of my peace of mind? I was listening to your satsangs. I was trying to focus on you and only you, trying to find peace. And why did you allow that doctor to come and rob me of my peace? It was too much to take. All that information I could not process. A few days later, after I had returned home, a few days later, I had a satsang in Boston that I attended, and my feelings were very raw, and I narrated everything to one of all the Sangat there. And everybody was trying to process it, piece it together, and, show me what it meant and how to move forward. And somebody suggested me reading Anita Kumar Auntie's book. Others suggested me writing my own satsangs. And I came back, I slept. Next morning, the whole day, I had only one thought going through my head. And that thought was, Guru Vadda ke doctor. And I knew Guruji was talking to me, Guru Vadda ke doctor. And while I was preparing for this particular satsang, today's satsang, and I was going through all that had happened and I was trying to process all the information, I recalled the Shabad that Guruji gave me for October. That was Prab Dori Haath Tumhare. And at that point, I felt so bad. I felt like a child who is cross with his parents, apne parents se naraz hai. And, the parents are trying to appease the kid, and they are listening to everything that's unreasonable and ignoring it and still loving the child. I felt like that child. Guruji is loving me, blessing me every single day. And I complain, I cry, I ignore his teachings, and I continue to dwell in my misery at times. That is the biggest lesson that I learned after I was able to process all that information. I've made a lot of mistakes. Sometimes his messages are lost in translation. Other times, even when I'm able to understand it, register it, execution part fails. I don't implement what he's trying to tell me. I take one step forward and two backwards in my spiritual journey, and I've just started. So I just, with my folded hands, and I pray to Guruji that he keeps every one of us in his lotus feet, and all of us connected for Sarbat Ka Bhala. Thank you. Thank you so much, Guruji, for this opportunity.
Behan Shukrana, Guruji, for these immense learnings that you're giving through Aunty. And we are all very blessed that we are connected with him, as the Hukamnama also said the same thing, that he is there. We just choose to look the other way around. And as Aunty was sharing the Shabad, Sthir Kar Baiso, so all we need to is sit with him and Prab Dori Haath Tumhare. All the Shabads are ringing in all our ears as Aunty is shared. And there are messages from Guru Sahab that he's there and he's the only one. Thank you, Guru Sahab, for these profound messages that you gave through Aunty. We are so thankful to you for you being there in our lives. बेहद शुक्राना गुरु साहब. संगत जी, अगर आज आपका बर्थडे है या आपके परिवार में किसी का भी बर्थडे है, तो सब संगत परिवार की तरफ से आप सबको बहुत सारी शुभकामनाएं, और गुरुजी हमें अपनी स्ट्रेंथ इसी तरह देते रहें और हम उनके लायक बनते रहें. Some संगत जी have requested the recording of this particular satsang. It is available with the consent of the sharer. We would be sharing it in different groups as per the request of the Sangat ji. Sangat ji, we all know that he is Bhagwan Sakshat and he listens to us. So we will take Agya with a bhajan. Kaun kehta hai Bhagwan aate nahi.
कौन कहते हैं भगवान आते नहीं, तुम मीरा के जैसे बुलाते नहीं. कौन कहते हैं भगवान आते नहीं, तुम मीरा के जैसे बुलाते नहीं. अच्युतम केशवम कृष्ण दामोदरम, राम नारायणम जानकी वल्लभम. कौन कहते हैं भगवान खाते नहीं, वीर शबरी के जैसे खिलाते नहीं. कौन कहते हैं भगवान खाते नहीं, वीर शबरी के जैसे खिलाते नहीं. अच्युतम केशवम कृष्ण दामोदरम, राम नारायणम जानकी वल्लभम. कौन कहते हैं भगवान नाचते नहीं, गोपियों की तरह तुम नचाते नहीं. कौन कहते हैं भगवान नाचते नहीं, गोपियों की तरह तुम नचाते नहीं। अच्युतम केशवम कृष्ण दामोदरम, राम नारायणं जानकी वल्लभम्। कौन कहते हैं भगवान सोते नहीं, माँ यशोदा के जैसे सुलाते नहीं। कौन कहते हैं भगवान सोते नहीं, माँ यशोदा के जैसे सुलाते नहीं। कृष्ण गोविंद गोपाल गाते चलो, नाम जपते चलो काम करते चलो। याद आएगी उनको कभी ना कभी, कृष्ण दर्शन तो देंगे कभी ना कभी। कृष्ण दर्शन तो देंगे अभी के अभी, कृष्ण दर्शन तो देंगे अभी के अभी।
बेहद शुक्राना गुरु साहब। संगत जी, you can unmute yourself and take आज्ञा।
जय गुरु जी, शुक्राना गुरु जी।
जय गुरु जी,
जय गुरु जी,
शुक्राना गुरु जी,
शुक्राना गुरु जी। थैंक यू अनु आंटी, थैंक यू सो मच।
शुक्राना गुरु जी, आज्ञा गुरु जी,
जय गुरु जी, शुक्राना
गुरु जी, आज्ञा गुरु जी।
शुक्राना गुरु जी,
गुरु जी,